If you are hunting trouble, lad, you found it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be redoing my old class tier list because I feel like it, and my opinions have changed since playing the game for like a whole other year. I got a few hundred extra hours underneath my belt. And all the background footage, most of it in this video is going to be recorded pre-Neptune update, so yeah, sorry if the background footage looks a little bit outdated. I have played with the Neptune balance changes, of course, and it's only a little bit different. I just wanted to mention that. I'm also working on the BR1 weapons tier list sort of in the background, but I wanted to redo the class tier list in the meantime, sort of as a jumping off point. I'm probably not going to redo the pistols tier list though, because I don't think they really changed at all. But yeah, I just felt like doing this one more for no particular reason, honestly. And for the context of the actual list, I'll be listing the classes in the order of how good they are. Left to right placement on the tier list doesn't mean anything, just like, all my other list. And I'll be talking about every class in the game besides planes, because I don't like planes, I don't use planes. I don't really, I don't care about planes. I don't associate with planes, I don't associate with pilot mains. Planes are not fun, in my opinion. They do not bring joy to Enlisted. Tanks at least have obvious weaknesses, but planes are just a whole other ballpark of annoying and, like, not something I want to deal with. But yeah, everything's my opinion. I have hundreds of hours of experience and strategic knowledge, quote unquote, quote unquote. So if you're offended by that, I don't really care. Go play custom matches. Go play custom matches or something. Excuse me. The balancing in Enlisted overall is okay, but like I said, planes are kind of annoying. The overall class design needs kind of an overhaul, though, I feel like. Hope I didn't just say overhaul twice, but yeah, the class design overall, I feel like it needs to be changed a little bit. The classes are not distinct enough from each other, I feel like. You get a little bit more difference in, like, the perk selection of vitality and stuff, but it's like the weapon selection overlaps a little bit too much. Some classes are also underdeveloped, like the medic. I feel like they could change these things and, iron them out a little bit more in general. But now that the preamble yapping is done, let's get on to the first entry in the tier list. Alright, so for the first unit type on the list, we have the armored car. And you may be asking yourself, what do you mean armored car? Don't you mean tanker? They're in the same slot, right? And I guess technically, but armored cars, the gameplay is completely different from most tanks. Even like light tanks, armored car gameplay is different. But yeah, it's just any vehicle that falls under that category that isn't like specifically like a BR3 premium, I guess if you want to, like, I guess you could count those, but they're like very rare and like you can't really get a lot of them anymore. But yeah, point being, they're not very good. Even in low BRs, they're usually a total downgrade from tanks. You can't really do anything but, like, get a little bit of firepower, excuse me, further up the board a little bit faster than you could with a tank. But that comes at the cost of being, like, completely vulnerable even to, like, low explosive yield grenades and flamethrowers. And that's not really worth the trade-off. Like, speed for firepower isn't really worth the trade-off if you sacrifice an entire tank for it. If you're sacrificing an entire tank for it. This goes for the bike too, but I'll mention that later. But a way I think they can improve both bikes and armored cars is by giving you an extra slot specifically for them. So like a second vehicle slot, but it would be for fast attack. Have it be its own little line in the tree. You have like bikes at the beginning, the different types of bikes at the beginning, and then stuff like Jeeps, the Kubelwagen, and then armored cars further up. I think that would improve them a lot and maybe get them up to C tier, just from, you having the extra vehicle you can deploy sort of whenever. I don't know, maybe it would have like a 3 out of 3 limit or something. so you could get like some cool vehicle combat in the beginning of the round before they get inevitably blown up by planes or any random guy with a dynamite pack or grenade, because paper thin armor on them. But yeah, it's pretty terrible. They're just not very good. It's not worth at all taking over even the low BR tanks in most of the factions. So yeah, armored cars are gonna get an F tier. Next unit on the roster we have is Mortarmen. My stance on mortars has not changed at all, and in fact, I think they're even more useless than I thought previously. Still very game mode and super map dependent, because if you're on the wrong map and it has like a lot of indoor spaces, you will literally just get no hit markers, no kills ever, unless you find enemies out in the open and they just stand there for no reason instead of running into cover or getting in a building, because why would you be out in the open in general to begin with in an urban map? But yeah, you guys get my point. You need a really good lead and a clear line of sight, or your mortars will just usually not find any targets at all, and you're left with just what is a more worthless rifleman. They should be able to come in rifle squads, or maybe just other squads in general. Or another thing they could do to make them better is just shutter mortars and shutter mortars and snipers both, and make them into a single long-range support squad, or have that be at some further point in the tech tree. But you guys get that sort of concept, right? It's like mortars and snipers mixed together. You have your long-range support squad in general, because I think the two squads separately are just kind of very weak and not really worth even bothering with at all, unless you're just curious to see how they play, which is mostly the reason why I grinded snipers. I was just like, hey, this might be useful sometimes, and yeah, it is. They're more useful than the mortarmen are. But you do have good objective denial on open maps that's a long range, and you don't have to fiddle with radio strikes at all. But yeah, it's literally a waste of a squad slot if you're free to play. You're not really going to be using them, super map dependent, etc, etc. It takes a lot of effort to micromanage in comparison to doing literally anything else, like honestly. And if you can't even mark targets, you aren't going to know where enemies are. You're just going to be firing blindly and wasting your time sitting there, plunking a mortar after mortar out of the mortar itself and not doing like anything. So yeah, they're going to be F tier, because why would I make them any higher? I don't like mortars. The guy who said in the last video, oh yeah, mortars are cool in high BRs. No, like not even. I don't even see people use them in high BRs or like during events that much. I see the 2-inch mortar for allies sometimes, but it still doesn't really do much besides just pester open air objectives, and that's literally like it. You can get a hit on a tank and destroy a tank, but you have to be really lucky, because even if you're aiming at it directly, you still have to wrangle with the RNG of whether the mortar actually hits the tank directly. And most of the time, smart tanks are going to be changing position often, unless they're just camping in the gray, in which case that could be a good use case for it. But yeah, otherwise mortars are a solid F tier. Just never use mortars ever if you're free to play, unless you just want to get that achievement. But then again, I recommend the flamethrowers over them, honestly, for getting that specific achievement. Excuse me. If you guys can't tell, I haven't recorded in a very long time, and I'm not really used to it. But yeah, that's it. Mortars are an F tier. The next squad we have is going to be bikers. And yeah, obviously, for vehicle-related units, I'm going to be rating pretty much the vehicle, not really, like the driver or tanker itself. But, and I think I said that in my last video too, obviously. But yeah, no changes to bikers at all. Bikers are slightly more drivable. Bikes are slightly more drivable than they used to be. They fixed a little bit of the jank with it, but they're still really bad. They added I think it's a premium squad, AT rifle bike, which is, it's okay. It's okay in BR1. In BR2, it's probably a total meme, and like any point after that, what are you doing? But not really useful at all, frankly, besides maybe a little bit in BR1, but still, you should not be throwing away tanks at all, and I would rather just take an armored car over it. Unless you really do value getting a rally setup far ahead in the map on BR1 of all BRs, where most of the players in your team usually don't know which direction to walk. And yeah, the portable ammo box is cool too, I guess. I just put that in my notes. They have the same problems as armored cars, though, except worse, because you can literally just, like, shoot with any gun, and the bike is just completely neutralized. And the enemy can literally just, like, jump on it and put it into a good position and use it as a turret if they wanted to, which is horrible, absolutely horrible for your team. So yeah, bikes are a F tier. They're awful. Never use bikes as a free-to-play ever. Like, even if you pay for more slots, I don't recommend bikes ever. Alright, the next squad we have on the list is going to be the Flamethrower Trooper. An extremely close-range support that is hard to really get going if your enemy doesn't stand totally still like an idiot, waiting for the wall of fire to come with him. They also have issues with stamina and getting up to places appropriately, I figured out. Especially when you have the flamethrower out, because it makes you as slow or even slower than you would be holding a machine gun. So yeah, I maybe recommend getting stamina perks for flamethrowers because you want to get close. It's kind of hard to like even get into position otherwise, I found. But yeah, also when you're holding your flamethrower out, you're vulnerable to both grenades and gunfire because you kind of have to rev it up for a second, and you're not even guaranteed to actually get the you're not guaranteed to get the burn off if you aren't like in a good position for it and also completely prepared. It's okay at sapping hunkered down enemies and like, you know, bunkers or whatever, you know, they've taken cover in something. The flames are good at getting rid of bots completely, but it's just completely outclassed by all of the automatic season classes. All the automatic weapons are usually better than the flamethrowers. A thing I think they could do to make flamethrowers a little bit better is maybe allow you to take them in engineer squads, as combat engineers historically featured flamethrowers from World War I and World War II. You know, actual combat engineer squads had access, you know, to take flamethrowers and submachine guns too. They usually have submachine guns too, but besides the point, right? I think that would make them a little bit more usable if you could take them in engineer squads more, or maybe assault squads, but the actual squad itself isn't really worth taking besides just for getting the achievement, which is what I have them on my Germany for. I'm still grinding for that achievement. It's kind of annoying with how like middling and mediocre the flamethrower is to actually use and how mediocre it is feeling wise. But yeah, the model citizens for a squad you will never really take or never ever touch in like your entire life besides just to get the achievement for it. So it's gonna be C tier. It's not F tier. It has its uses for holding and taking capture points, but that's literally it, you know. It's just kind of like a worse rifleman otherwise. Alright, the next unit we have is going to be the medic. It functionally usually is just sort of a dollar store version of an assault and like super low BR before you actually get any assault or guerrillas available to you, which I think assaulters are actually like BR2, the initial unlock, but you can give them earlier weapons to use them in BR1. I could be misremembering, but people like early game in the enlisted grind usually just use them as like dollar store assaulters, right? You know, they usually just play with the automatics and not actually use the main function of the class, which is to heal and give out medkits. It's more of a convenience thing, or hey, I want to actually have a secondary weapon. I want to actually pick up this guy's weapon and use it as a secondary, more than actually because they actively want to help the team, which is really sad, but that's literally just how medics are enlisted. They are a super underdeveloped class. The actual like squad they're associated with isn't really that good, but I'm not talking about the squads mostly. I'm mostly talking about the individual units. You know, having all the medkits and nice is having, excuse me, that was word salad. Having all the medkits is like nice and stuff, right? But you usually don't get to use like more than a few of them. And another thing that's also very annoying is that while it is good, you can heal players as medics, obviously, without any needing to put down the medkit box. The AI medics cannot heal players, and that's very aggravating and something they should 100,000% change, because it would very much improve medic as a class and make it worth taking more, along with giving more squads the ability to take medics, because it's very limited right now. There's only like a few different types of squads that can even take a medic at all. And yeah, I think there should be less riflemen as filler in squads, and they should have like more specialist slots in general that aren't just like immediate copies of the main trooper, right? But that's a different rant. But yeah, medics would be a lot better if they could be like reworked a little bit. The AI on them needs to be fixed, etc. The automatics are nice. Automatics and shotguns are nice early game, although you probably won't be using shotguns at all. But yeah, it's pretty much just they're C tier because of them being so underbaked. So yeah, that's it for the medic. C tier. They just need to fix it. It's just a little bit underbaked. I feel like it would be a little bit better. But yeah, that's it for the medic. The next unit we have on the list are going to be the riflemen, which I know that might make some people mad, but it's my list. I think riflemen are generally pretty mediocre and like mostly just a filler unit when it comes to squads and not something you want to be actively taking. The rifle squad itself is not really something you want to be actively taking. After a few hundred more hours of playing the game, I'm still not convinced of the rifleman's usefulness as an individual unit or the squad itself either. Rifle grenades got absolutely nerfed into the ground, like utterly. The anti-infantry ones, like the lower BR rifle grenades, are terrible. They're just awful now. They're incredibly slow. The projectile's kind of slow. You can maybe get like 2 or 3 units in that splash radius max, unless you're shooting a squad that just now spawned in from a rally, which you'd be doing good with any other weapon anyway in that case, or like dynamite or dynamite pack or whatever. So it's not really even like an excuse. It's not really even a benefit. The anti-armor rifle grenades are a lot better and a lot more useful too, but I don't think it's really worth moving them up any further in the tier list, because this list is mostly going to be, it mostly pertains to like BR 1, 3, and a little bit of 4 and 5, because 90% of the player base is on BR 1 to 3, right? But yeah, rifle grenades are an absolute meme. Riflemen are just the pure baseline. You'd rather have anything else but a rifleman in a given squad. They aren't really like special at all, right? It's just usually annoying to like grind them up too, because the actual rifle squad is like I said, mostly just rifles. But what else about the riflemen? I like that the rifle squad takes up way less tickets. That's pretty useful, I guess. If you're straining tickets, then yeah, take the rifle squad or whatever. Go with the rifle squad. If you have a spare slot and you're straining tickets at the very like end of the game, or your team is about to push into losing, yeah, spawn as rifle squads, do the objective, get more tickets. But yeah, literally any other squad you want to be taking as a free-to-play besides the rifle squad, and by proxy, riflemen are just not really that good. They're just sort of filler. So yeah, I hope I made a decent case for why rifle squads aren't really worth caring about, but they're not horrible either. They're just the mediocre baseline for every other unit in the game, pretty much. So yeah, rifle squads are going to be a C tier. Or, riflemen, excuse me, are going to be a C tier. Next unit we have on the list is going to be the sniper. The snipers. The snipers are just, they're also kind of a meme, I feel like. A lot of people who are coming from other FPS games are going to be picking the sniper and assuming that snipers and sniper squads are good just from playing other FPS games, and not realizing like the true scale of how middling snipers can be, unless it's like BR5 snipers, which are apparently really good, like the automatic snipers at the very end of the game. But we're mostly talking about low BR. And in low BR, yeah, they're very much a side grade to riflemen. I wouldn't really consider them better. They're not as good offensively, because you can't really get as close and have the sniper rifle be effective, because they're bolt actions in lower BRs. I think the M1 Grand sniper is really good. The M1 Grand and the whatever the Russian semi-automatic. The name isn't coming to me. I'm recording very late, right? as I usually do. But yeah, the BR3 snipers are pretty okay too. But by that point, you're also dealing with a lot more complicated stuff, so it sort of evens out to staying mediocre. But yeah, they're more useful. They're a lot more useful for defensive scenarios where the enemies will be running towards you, and you want to have something that can pick off at longer ranges more reliably. Or I shouldn't say more reliably, I should say more accurately than a machine gun can, unless you're using a scoped machine gun like how the Japanese have, or like one of the premium machine guns, I guess. But yeah, a decent sniping position is also really good too in both defense and offense. If you wanted to use them in offense for whatever reason, I suggest like getting into a really snug position and playing support by picking people off the point when it's actively being attacked, or hunting for rally positions and trying to either snipe the rally or snipe any engineers trying to build things near it, or help call down airstrikes, whatever. Use the radio on the sniper squad, etc. Actually, do they come on the radio? I forgot. But I know the radio squad does come with a sniper, so yeah. Which I also do recommend for the radio squad personally, if you were forced to use it to level up, like many a poor soul have. But yeah, the rifle, excuse me, not the rifle, the sniper squad suffers a lot offensively, and they suffer taking objectives a lot because the sniper rifles are just not as effective in close range unless you're just a sick quick scoper, which you could be, but besides the point. They sort of just gather score from rounding up eliminations and knockdowns than they do actually doing the objective most of the time. People who main sniper. And despite having like 120 kills or whatever, they usually end up in the middle of the scoreboard just because they didn't really contribute much else. But that is a decent contribution if you're playing on a tickets-based mode, But point being, they're just sort of middling, like a weird side grade to riflemen. A weird, more niche specific side grade to riflemen, so they're just getting a C tier. The next unit we have is going to be the anti-tank, which is a pure and straight upgrade from the rifleman. A little of my views have changed since the last video. It's really good. It's really okay. I wouldn't really say like good, it's okay. Because it's such an easy counter to tanks, which are a massive threat in most cases, and also decent at anti-infantry if you're using like a Panzerfaust or that grenade Sturm pistol. Yeah, if you're using the Sturm pistol, you could also blow up AT cannons way easier than having to manually walk up there and assault them, right? It's also good for attacking entrenched positions. Like I said, if you're using the Panzerfaust, something that has a lot of blast to it, you could hit multiple people at the same time. But you're mostly just there to destroy vehicles with, and destroy vehicles it is very good at. The Panzerfaust specifically, which is like probably the single best anti-tank in the game, both the versions of the Panzerfaust. The Japanese AT, the Q-tip gun, cotton swab gun, recoilless rifle, whatever, is also pretty good too, I found. But yeah, anti-tank is pure upgrade from rifleman. You don't have to sacrifice the ammo pack like you do on the radio or the flamethrower squad. So it's basically just a rifleman, but you get, the rocket launcher, which on top of, destroying vehicles easier, is able to be just like a quick pull-out weapon if you needed it for whatever reason. If your pistol didn't have any ammo, I guess. But yeah, it's B tier. It's pretty much a straight upgrade from rifleman. You always want to try to get at least one anti-tank in your squad because tanks are rather a common thing. They're a decently common thing, and you never know when you could use a rocket launcher. I'm not sure if rocket launchers, I might just be, because like I said, it's very late. I'm not sure if they can destroy sandbags or not, but if they can, I'm too lazy to do research. I don't really care. Too lazy to go back and redo research after doing more research for like the past like 2 weeks. But I don't know if they can destroy fortifications, sandbags, but they can destroy all the other fortifications. So that's pretty good too, I guess. If you did have a grenade on you. So yeah, thusly they are B tier. Alright, the next unit we have on the list is the Radio Man, which is a great utility unit. Not so great for combat by itself, but that's not its purpose, The airstrike is good for wiping out large swarms of bots and enemy players both, that are gathering on the point. Airstrike or artillery? It has both, but you guys get what I mean. The smoke strikes and carpet bombs are both decent support, but I would not go for carpet bombs ever at all. They usually aren't worth it. Even after they buff them, it's really easy to just cheese it by either getting into a building or just, laying down, going prone, whatever. They're also kind of very annoying to level up, I will say, though, because they gain XP very slowly. And trying to actually get XP with just radio men as your combat unit is very annoying. It's very annoying. It's very time wasting. But yeah, I recommend taking at least one of them in each squad besides maybe the assaulter squad, because you're probably going to be close to the point anyway and not really going to be needing to use an airstrike. And yeah, carpet bombs also another reason they waste time, not only because they're slow, but they only really end up clearing out bots, which isn't exactly a challenge anyway for like literally anybody using a semi-auto. It's just like a very niche. It's just a very niche thing. Rocket artillery is not really that good either. It's also a little bit just too slow and niche. You'd have to have like a stationary tank hanging out in the gray. But I don't think you can target things in the gray using a radio man. That's like the one thing besides maybe taking out, I don't know, a single rally next to a truck or whatever, that I'd really see the rocket strikes being used for. But yeah, they're a good utility unit. Not so great for combat, but not the purpose. So they're going to be getting a B tier. Alright, for the next unit we have on the list is going to be the APC. The stock standard trucks and half-tracks, and none of the premium stuff, none of the cool stuff that actually has weapons on it. That should have just been on the tech tree anyway, but Gaijin didn't do it because they're all greedy little goblins, right? But yeah, it's a pretty simple unit, It's a portable rally. You get like a little assault squad with it. You can use the assault squad without having to spawn in a new one. It's a pretty simple vehicle. You move it into position, get it into a good position, and it's just a rally point. That's it. But given it comes with the assault squad too, I think it definitely bumps it up from being a sort of more niche thing to being more useful. Because besides not having an engineer, the assault squad is actually pretty good most of the time. Having an assaulter and a machine gun, and the actual driver being able to have an SMG too is cool. Not really much to say about the APC. Like, I don't have any complaints besides, maybe just being a little bit too vulnerable in some maps. But in other maps, like urban maps, or ones where there's a lot of, like, prop vehicles, a lot of fake vehicles that are just there for decoration, I think it's definitely better in those. But yeah, not really much else to say about it. It's pretty good. We're getting into the sort of stuff where I'm mostly going to be praising it at this point. But yeah, it's going to be a B tier for the APC. Guerrillas. They're like a diet assault squad with no engineers or anti-tank, but you get a whole line of SMGs. You get to stack 2 different SMGs, or an SMG and a shotgun, or 2 shotguns if you're sadistic. So you get to damage max with like any combination of weapons you want, pretty much. Also, any weapon you pick up from an enemy comes with like full ammo loaded into it. So if you're lucky, you can outfit you and your whole squad of bots all with like light machine guns or whatever crazy high VR premium guns you find on the ground, whatever. On top of having 5 TNT packs per soldier, and you can just go crazy on vehicles. Vehicles with like really thick top armor, like some of the premium vehicles that can normally absorb a TNT pack explosion completely, are not going to have a good time when they have 2 or 3 whole TNT packs explode in them at once. It's useful for setting up traps if you want to do something so niche and specific, which people usually don't because the game is usually too fast-paced for it, besides maybe if you're playing on defense, right? But other than that, I think guerrillas are pretty good overall. They're like not as good as the assault squad, and yeah, I am judging them as a squad and an individual unit both, right? Because they're another special case. But the lack of utility is kind of not really great, but I guess you can count having dynamite packs as utility in a way. They're more of just like a damage maxing assaulter. But yeah, they're usually really fun to play in general. It's fun to troll with all the dynamite packs on certain maps. So yeah, they're our first A tier. The next unit on the list is going to be the machine gunner, which is a defensive and sometimes offensive bullet spraying powerhouse. They're like a diet assaulter, but more suited for longer range engagements and defensive actions. Whether it be camping in a window or on an objective. They're a much better defensive unit than snipers. It is recommended, though, you always build an ammo box if you're playing defense with machine gunners, because, yeah, the machine gun can obviously chew through ammo very quick. Not as fast as some of the SMGs, but you will be definitely chewing through ammo a lot often, especially if you're in a good position, which you should be. If you can find a good window with a machine gunner, you will absolutely dominate that sight line as long as you're there and probably get a triple kill stat by the end of the match, usually. They're absolutely insane to hold points with if you put them in the right spot. And even if the enemy tries to push inside, the massive magazine size on most machine guns, even like the early BR ones, usually means you don't even have to aim down sight. You could just laser them down, just walk up and laser them down, or lay down and laser them down, whatever. The only things that hold them back from being any higher is that it usually requires setup, the bipod, because the machine gun recoil is very unmanageable unless you're using auto slow on something like the few LMGs that have it, which I do recommend. I do always recommend auto slow on LMGs. It usually makes them a lot more controllable. You're not going to be wasting ammo as much. The fire rate on the bars especially is very unmanageable a lot of the time when it comes to actually hitting things, and also just ammo management in general. You're going to be accidentally using like a whole magazine for like 3 guys, and it's pretty annoying. Mobility in general also holds them back, because when you have the actual machine gun out, you move slower, you sprint slower. It takes a second to pull it back out and start spraying, compared to the SMG where you can have it in your hand like pretty much the entire time. So yeah, that's the reason why they are only A tier. But they're very good. They're very good. I recommend machine gunners. I recommend the machine gun squad. If you're free to play, I recommend taking it. So yeah, that's the machine gunners. Alright, the next unit on the docket is going to be the tanks. And you know what a tank is, right? You just destroy everything. You can sit and farm eliminations in the gray zone, or just shut down an entire point using HE shell spam along with constant machine gun fire. With the right placement and good overhead cover like trees, where planes cannot see you at all, and AT might have trouble getting to you, besides AT guns if they get a good sight on you, but that's just a matter of luck and there being good engineers on their team. But yeah, tanks are pretty much like, I wouldn't really say invulnerable, but they're close to it. If the enemies aren't good at dealing with tanks, you can farm like 200 something eliminations with tanks, right? It's extremely easy to if you're in a good position and you're giving constant useful fire support to your team most of the time. They are sometimes map dependent, because some maps are absolutely terrible for tanks, but others are good. Like some of the desert maps, depending on which side you're playing on, which side you spawn on, whatever, are really good for tanks, because you can just literally sit in the back of the map and just snipe people with HE and machine gun both, and not really be at that much of a risk, besides just for enemy tanks and planes, right? But yeah, they're an absolute stone pillar of Enlisted's meta, and I do recommend always taking a tank, even over a plane, unless you're a demonic plane main who likes to ruin games and doesn't like to have fun particularly. I do recommend using the more generalist generic tanks over hyper-specific anti-tank or anti-infantry tanks, however, because they're always better. They're just always better. Like the Japanese short gun that's like really good HE, it's just not that good, because you're not going to be doing anything to vehicles and you have no machine gun. Same goes for like all the self-propelled guns. Pretty much every self-propelled gun in the game is not as good as a tank. But I didn't really want to classify them as a different thing like I did armored cars, because, they are more reminiscent of a tank than an armored car is, right? But I don't recommend taking those, however. I just recommend going with generalist tanks and focusing on just giving fire support to the point. Don't get close at all unless you absolutely need to get line of sight, like if it's over a hill or something. Try to stay as far away from the enemy team as possible, because it's very easy for them to just run up and AT rocket you, or just run up with a dynamite pack or TNT pack and just blow you up and you're just gone. But yeah, other than that, tanks are A tier. The only thing holding them back from S tier is the fact they are kind of vulnerable to things like planes and engineer built AT guns, right? They're super vulnerable to that. But yeah, A tier. The next unit we have on the docket is going to be the Assaulter, the single best combat unit in the entire game, period, bar none. Has absolutely glorious stats for stamina and health, both. And SMGs and assault rifles later on are probably the single best weapon class in the entire game for actually getting objectives done. And, combat in general. Their only downside being range limitations on a lot of them. But yeah, it's like, I don't even know what else to say, The actual squad, too, comes with all the utility you need. They're like the bread and butter of Enlisted. You always want to have, as a free-to-play player, and as a premium player, too, you always want to have an assault squad. They're mega useful in general. It's like, I don't even know what else to say. It's like, speaks for himself. It's that simple and clean. S tier. The second to last unit we have is the Engineers, the single most important unit for literally everything in Enlisted. Without Engineers, Enlisted does not work. You cannot play Enlisted effectively without having an Engineer in all of your squads. Besides like the specialists, like the guerrillas or whatever, they're acceptable because they're like their own thing, right? But yeah, you need Engineers always. It's kind of annoying when they get sniped before you're able to build your rally or whatever, but that's just circumstance. It's not really anything against the Engineers. Otherwise, super amazing. They build everything you need. There's infantry there. You build a machine gun. There's tanks. You build AA. Barbed wire sandbags, ammo, all that other stuff. Everything. There's an AA. You just build a plane. Excuse me. If there's a plane, you just build an anti-aircraft gun. I have no idea what I'm talking about right now. But you have everything you need in the Engineer's toolkit. You get a lot of them in the squad. You always want to take an Engineer at every possible opportunity. At least one per squad. You don't need to double stack Engineers, I don't think, in a given squad. But yeah, they're S tier. You knew this. Like, we all knew this already. We already knew, like, the top 3 already, pretty much. But yeah, that's the Engineers. I love them. Yeah, bottom text. Alright, the last unit we have on the tier list in end of S tier, whatever. It's the last thing, is going to be the paratroopers, which I know are premium squad most of the time, but they give them out for free sometimes in event squads, and that's the ones I have. You can also get them from silver crates too, and I also have those too, so I have a decent amount of experience with paratroopers. So it might be a little bit biased, given that one of those was the super powerful BR5 allied machine gun paratroopers. But yeah, paratroopers are really good. They're really good. They are kind of also a diet assault, but they're also super flexible because you get all the different options in the supply box that comes down with them, right? The machine guns, snipers, Engineers and mortars, which I think should probably come with more Engineers and maybe only one mortar, or just more Engineers, because that would be nice. That's always helpful. And then the AT, which is kind of useful, not as useful as the other ones, I feel like, for what you want to be doing as a paratrooper squad, but useful if the enemy has a high concentration of tanks wherever you're landing, whatever. But yeah, they're pretty much just assault squads, but you get to insert them and go down pretty much anywhere in the map you want to, as long as you don't get yourself stuck on like a roof really high up or whatever. They're good for dropping into trees because that's usually good cover for them. The only real weakness, besides not being sustainable since they can't build themselves ammo boxes without having the Engineer, is it's just them being able to be shot down like kind of easily. They definitely nerfed paratroopers from how good they used to be because the plane is like super easy to shoot down. But most of the time, I have figured out that paratroopers usually don't get shot down, especially if you're inserting them in like some obscure corner in like the very corner of the gray in general. They're more useful on attack than they are defense because you can put a rally in a very very cheeky spot without having to waste like untold amount of time trying to crawl to that position manually. You guys get what I mean, right? That's just like a regular engineer or whatever. But they're just overall super flexible assault squad. Only downsides is that they have kind of low ammo without ammo boxes, and they can be shot down semi-easily, but it doesn't really happen as often as you'd think, at least in my experience, right? But other than that, some of the best squads in the game, pretty much. Super useful. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the last of them. They're like an on-demand assault squad, so S tier. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the final tier list is going to be displayed during the last part of this video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it enlightened you a little bit, because I do have a very decent amount so far of both combat and strategic experience in Enlisted, so I know what is and what isn't good or bad, whatever, blah 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 blah. Yap 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 yap. I'm just filling in for time so you guys can look at the list a little bit more. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video overall. Like I said, I am working on the BR1 weapon list, and it's going to take it's going to take forever because there's so many weapons in BR1. There's just like an absolute ton of weapons in BR1, and 90% of them are copies of each other. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to split it into being like a part 1 and a part 2. I might just do it all in one part, but looking at the spreadsheets I've already made of all the BR1 rifles, just the rifles, not the SMGs, the shotguns, and pistols obviously I rank separately. It's a headache. There's just like so much of it. There's just so much of it. But I'll try to work on that. Sorry I haven't been getting videos out at all. It's just because of it being summer right now. My room is mega 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 stuffy during summer. I have to have my AC on blast like pretty much the entire time unless I want to melt. And I don't have anywhere else I could really record, that wouldn't have like terrible reverberation. Like if I tried to do it in any other room, it would sound very, very echoey. But you guys get my logic, I'm sorry for only posting like once every few months, whatever. But I didn't expect the summer to chew me up like it has been so far. And life stuff, motivational reasons too. But yeah, I hope you guys appreciated this video. I hope it was good enough to stimulate your brain cells and educate you. And I'll see you guys next time on Enlisted rankings or whatever other stupid thing I do. I am out.
Thanks, mate.